Once, in the quiet chambers of a peaceful monastery nestled in the hills, a great monk lay on his deathbed. His breathing was shallow, his body frail, but his mind was as sharp as ever. Surrounded by his disciples and followers who had come to witness his final moments, he turned his head toward his chosen successor, a young monk full of promise and purity. With a faint smile and a soft voice, he whispered, "Remember one thing. Never allow a cat into your life." Those were the last words he spoke before his eyes closed forever. Whispers echoed through the hall as people tried to make sense of his final statement. Why a cat? Of all the teachings and philosophies he could have shared, why such a strange warning? The young disciple, now burdened with the weight of leadership and this mysterious message, couldn't shake it from his mind. As the master's body was taken away for cremation amid chants and rituals, the young monk remained distant, lost in a fog of confusion. Night after night, he sat in meditation, searching for the meaning, but no clarity came. His heart was restless, his mind consumed. There was another monk in the monastery, much older, quieter, and wise in ways only experience can teach. He had walked beside the master for decades, seen him grow, fall, rise again. Although age and illness had kept him from being chosen as a successor, his presence still held a certain reverence. One morning, noticing the unease etched into the young monk's face, the old man approached him gently. "Why do you carry this storm inside you, my child?" he asked. The young monk looked at him with eyes full of questions and said, "Before he passed, the master told me to never allow a cat in my life. I don't understand." "Why would he say that?" The old monk smiled, a knowing smile, as though he had been waiting for this question all along. He sat beside the young monk and began to speak, his voice soft like a breeze through autumn leaves. "Ah, you don't know the story, do you? There's a reason behind those words, and it's not really about a cat, though it begins with one." And so he began to recount a tale from long ago, a tale buried in time, like a secret only a few were meant to know. When the master was young, much like you are now, he left behind his worldly ties, his home, his wife, even his children, in search of something greater, something eternal. He wandered into a dense forest where he settled near a small, humble village. The villagers, taken by his presence and wisdom, welcomed him. He lived in a tiny bamboo hut they built for him, owning nothing but 2 pieces of cloth and the purity of his spirit. Every day he would walk to the village, hand stretched out, seeking alms. And every day the villagers would feed him, listen to his words, and bow in reverence. But life, even in simplicity, brings challenges. One day, rats invaded his hut. They chewed through his clothes, creating holes in more than just fabric. It was a small nuisance, yet enough to disturb his peace. He shared his concern with the villagers, and one of them suggested, "Keep a cat. The rats won't dare return." It sounded reasonable. What harm could a cat do? So he brought a cat into his life. The rats vanished, problem solved. But soon the cat needed feeding, and the monk, who once visited the village once a day for himself, now had to go twice, once for food, once for milk. The inconvenience grew. A kind villager, noticing his struggle, said, "Why not keep a cow? You'll have fresh milk every day. No need to ask for it anymore." The monk thought it through. It made sense. He accepted the cow. But cows don't live on air. They need grass, water, care. The monk, deep in his meditation and spiritual practice, found it exhausting to manage both the cow and the cat. Again, he shared his trouble. The villagers, always eager to help, offered a new solution. "There's a widow among us, alone and kind. She'll be honored to serve someone like you. Let her stay by your side. She can manage everything, the cat, the cow, even your meals." There was a pause. The monk hesitated, but the logic seemed sound. He agreed. The woman moved in. She took care of the cow and the cat, cooked the meals, and kept the hut clean. The monk, touched by her devotion, began helping her in the garden. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. They worked side by side, laughed occasionally, shared silence that slowly began to mean something. In time, emotions grew where detachment once lived. Affection blossomed, a relationship was born, and soon a child followed. The monk who had once renounced everything now toiled in the field under the sun, shoulder to shoulder with the woman who had once simply been a helper. His days were filled with chores, his nights with a sense of belonging he hadn't planned for. And then, one evening, as he sat watching his child play in the dirt, a question rose within him like a storm cloud. What happened to me? He had walked away from the world. He had left love, family, and possessions to find the truth, and yet here he was, a husband, a father, a farmer. The irony of his journey struck him hard. It wasn't sudden. It had crept in quietly, and as he traced back through the chain of events, he saw it all began with the cat. The old monk's voice softened as he finished the tale. When he told you never to let a cat into your life, he wasn't warning you about animals. He was warning you about the mind. It starts small. A single indulgence. A little compromise. You think just this once. Just a little pleasure. Just a tiny distraction. But the mind doesn't stop there. Once you feed it, it hungers for more. It grows bolder, louder, demanding. Before you know it, you're no longer in control. It is. He paused and looked deep into the eyes of the young monk. This is how addictions are born. No one starts with the intention of being ruled by desires. No one says, I will become a slave to this. It begins with a taste. Whether it's lust, laziness, junk food, or the screens we scroll endlessly, the trap is the same. One moment of weakness, one gap in awareness, that's all the mind needs. Like a spark that burns down an entire forest. The young monk sat still, the story unraveling within him, no longer a mystery, but a mirror. Discipline isn't about harshness, the old monk continued, it's about protection. A well-guarded mind is like a silent lake, still, deep, powerful, but an uncontrolled one is like a storm, chaotic, restless, dangerous. The master was a wise man, yet even he slipped when he gave in, just once. That's why his last words weren't about regret, but about caution. Learn from his path, stay awake, watch your mind like a hawk. And with that, the old monk stood and walked away, leaving the young successor alone with the truth. Not a warning about cats, but about the quiet, seductive pull of the mind. A pull that, if not resisted, can quietly undo even the strongest of vows.